Good evening, students. Thank you very much for having joined the class. Let's just wait for a couple of more minutes, all right? So that we can start with the class. And well, to check out if somebody else is going to join us as well, all right? But thank you very much for being early anyways. All right, thank you very much then for having joined me tonight. It's a pleasure to share this class with you. As I was mentioning at the beginning, we're always going to have this 5 minutes of tolerance, just in case you wanted to know what happens if you're able, well, if you're not able to get into the class early, If you are, well, for some reason forced to enter a little bit later, don't worry, we're always going to have this 5 minutes of tolerance, all right? Just in case you wanted to know. Well, thank you very much for having joined me tonight. It's a pleasure for me to be with you. Let me introduce myself. My name is Carlos Oliveira, and I'm going to be your teacher, all right, for the following weeks in this TOEFL classes. And well, I just wanted to say right from the beginning that I know what is said to be your shoes, in the sense that in my life I've taken this exam twice, and I certainly know what is said to feel all this anxiety, pressure, emotions, and also nerves, right? To take it, and also all this, as I say, anxiety and somehow suffering that you feel and perceive throughout the process of preparation is something normal. So I just wanted to tell you that I certainly know what is said to be in your shoes, and I'm here to guide you, okay? I would have liked to have somebody to guide me when I was in that process as well. Nonetheless, well, as I say, I'm here to guide you and to help you and collaborate you in any particular aspect that I could guide you with regard to the TOEFL exam, all right? So thank you very much, as I say, for joining me. Let us start with the class then. And as I told you through the WhatsApp group, today's class is not going to be as such, a class that it's part of our advance or part of our, agenda or our schedule, because we're not going to be discussing the TOEFL exam as such. Well, I mean, the content of the TOEFL exam, the speaking section, the writing section, the reading section, we're not going to get into the academic material yet. But what we're going to do tonight is that we're going to be discussing the general aspects of our classes and also the general aspects of the TOEFL exam. So please, if you want, join me in this presentation that I have prepared for you. And as I said, tonight, we're just going to be discussing that, not very much with regard to the sections of the TOEFL exam, that is to say, the speaking, the writing, the reading, the listening, how to approach those sections. We're going to let all that content for the following weeks, starting tomorrow, as I told you as well, through the WhatsApp group. But tonight is just a special class for us to meditate, as I told you, and to permeate ourselves into the general aspects of these classes and also of the TOEFL exam. All right, so first of all, I wanted to thank you for having chosen us. When you are about to take the TOEFL exam, or if you have taken it already, you join a very, very large family, because, well, the first TOEFL exam, if you, for example, were wondering about this, was released in 1964. That is, a long time ago. So imagine the quantity of people who have taken the exam in all these years. So it's a very large family, of course, when you join and when you're about to take the TOEFL exam. But you also have joined a very large family as well with us, with Executive English, because since our, let's say, foundation in 2017, we have had more than 10,000 students who have trusted us. And as I say, it's a pleasure to have you. Of course, not all of your classmates have managed to get into in this class, because of course they didn't know that we would be having classes today. And of course, they're going to be joining from tomorrow on. But nonetheless, as I say, to all of you who are here, thank you very much for having joined me, and thank you very much for having chosen Executive English as well, all right? And by the way, if you notice, this class is being recorded, and that is something that I wanted to tell you as well, because all these classes are going to be streamed and also uploaded to a YouTube channel that I'm going to be letting you have very soon, or probably the academic coordinator will also let you have the link. She normally puts the link to the YouTube channel in the WhatsApp description. That is to say, because we have a group, right? And in the group description, she normally pastes the link to the YouTube channel, where, as I say, I upload normally and constantly all the classes we're having. So if you, for example, miss a class, you're going to be able to rewatch it, and to, of course, even yourself with the rest of your classmates, and to rewatch it whenever you want later in the future, right? Maybe you are not going to take the exam too much Zoom. That is to say, you're going to take it maybe next year, in a, I don't know, couple of months. And of course, maybe your mind is going to forget something. Don't worry, you can come back to the YouTube channel, as I say, where all of our classes are going to be uploaded, all right? Just in case. Fantastic. So thank you very much, for having chosen us. Let's continue. All right, so let's start with some policies, all right, for our classes. It's very important that for our classes, you're going to be required to have your cameras on, all right? Of course, not in tonight's class, because I know that none of you were none of you was previously warned that you needed to have your cameras on. So maybe you didn't prepare your background. Maybe you didn't, I don't know, brush your hair. Don't worry, it's fine for tonight's class. It's fine. It's totally fine if you don't want to have your camera on. But as I said, for next classes, all right, it's very important for you to have your cameras on, because this is well, it's a policy that the company has decided in order for you to have, well, the, let's say, a better retention of all the content that we are going to be having. And so you, as I say, can retain and take advantage of all the content that we're going to be discussing. All right. So that is something that I wanted to tell you. Very important. This is, let's say, the only policy that the company requires me to tell you. And also very important, just in case at some point maybe you are not able to have your camera on for some sort of, I don't know, technical issue, technical problem, I'm going to be taking you out of the class just for a while. By the way, this is not a threat, okay? Please don't take it very seriously. It's just, you know, as I say, part of the policies that the company has. But as I mentioned, if at some point you maybe are not able to have your camera on, I'm going to take you out of the class just for a while. But as I say, just for a while. Why? Because you can actually enter the class at any point. Because if you look at the WhatsApp group, I send the link, right, to the Zoom meeting. So at any point, maybe if I take you out because you're not having your camera on, well, when you solve your problem, you can actually come back to the class, right? As you can see, here you have the link to the Zoom meeting. So please, you are actually very much encouraged and very much well, as I say, guided to get into the Zoom meeting, because of course these classes are for you. And as I say, this is part of the policy, right, of the company. Please don't take them very much seriously. It's just, as I say, part of what we have to do, right, as teachers in the company. So thank you very much for paying attention to this, all right? So I hope that everything is clear with regard to this. Very important to have your cameras on since next class, all right? Very good. Thank you very much then for having pay attention to that particular, let's say, part of our excursus on the general aspects of these classes. Now, let's talk about the agenda. Maybe you were wondering about this, the schedule. As I told you also through the WhatsApp group, our classes are going to be from Tuesdays to Fridays. Today's class is merely an introductory class, so we are not going to be repeating it, all right? It's just, as I say, an introductory class. Next week on Monday, we're not going to have classes, right? Just in case. Our classes are from Tuesdays until Fridays, as I told you. Now, look at my screen. You're going to see here two particular titles. It says theory and practice. And the reason why I'm showing you this is that here at Executive English, we have a blended model of education. That is to say, we are going to combine, right? We're going to combine two types of learning, let's say. The first one, theoretical learning, of course, and the other one, practical learning. So that through receiving all this content, you are not just going to be practicing for the TOEFL exam, but you're also going to be able to comprehend what you're doing in the TOEFL exam. So in my experience, it's very important to know why you are doing every single thing in the TOEFL exam. Why are you responding to, let's say, a particular question in the manner you're responding? And I think that all these theoretical classes are going to work particularly for that purpose. That is to say, for allowing us to understand why are we, let's say, following a particular approach, technique, or strategy. So the theoretical classes are going to be on Tuesdays and Thursdays, all right? And on those classes, we're going to discuss, as I said, all the theoretical aspects, theory, let's say, with regard to definitions, type of questions, how to respond them, some tips and hacks that I have discovered in my experience as well that, of course, I'm going to be delighted to share with you, all right? And as well, on Wednesdays and Fridays, we're going to have our practical classes. So you can see Wednesdays and Fridays, you know, days that somehow they tell you that it's good for you to practice to do something, right? So we're going to have our practical classes on Wednesdays and Fridays as well. So as you can see, here we have more or less the panorama for the following classes. Although, by the way, sometimes we are not going to respect them yes or yes, you know, like in a super literal and imperative manner, because, well, sometimes maybe you are having some troubles with a particular section or task within the exam. So maybe we can dedicate 3 days to theory, or maybe, I don't know, just 1 day to the theory. Maybe we are getting into a topic that is not very much theoretical, but super practical. So we're, of course, going to practice more than learning about it in a theoretical basis. So as I say, we can modify this. We're going to change it according to the circumstances and of course to how you react to the content, how you're understanding it. Maybe some of you ask me, but please, professor, we would like to have some more explanation on the theoretical aspect of the speaking section. Well, of course, we're going to have it, and we're going to let the rest for our practical classes, and we're going to have it, as I say, maybe on Wednesdays or maybe just on Fridays, and that's it. But we can change it, of course, right? It's not, let's say, super definite. It's flexible, and everything is going to depend on you, on what you want, and the progress that I perceive on your development. All right. So as I say, this is the panorama for the following classes. Fantastic. Let's continue. Oh, by the way, is there any question with regard to anything that I have said until this point? During the classes as well, of course, whenever you have a question, please, you can raise your hand, and I'm going to be delighted to respond to the question, right? So please don't be afraid, excuse me, of maybe, well, tell me that you have a question. I'm not going to get annoyed. As I say, I'm here to guide you, right? So if you have any question, you can tell me, right? Is there any question with regard to this? I guess no, right? Because it's super basic. But nonetheless, maybe there are going to be questions later on, and I'm going to be responding, all right? So let's get into now some general aspects about the TOEFL exam, all right? And let us discuss this. That is very interesting. Maybe many of you were not actually aware of what the word TOEFL actually stands for. And maybe somebody asks you, or maybe just maybe you're just curious, as I am, for example, and you want to know what the word TOEFL means. Well, the word TOEFL, by the way, means Test of English as a Foreign Language, right? It's not a, let's say, ad hoc acronym or something like that. It has a meaning, all right? As you can see, it's Test of English as a Foreign Language. Now, as many standardized examinations, the TOEFL exam has different versions, all right? And this is particularly important for the TOEFL exam because when you enroll for taking the TOEFL exam, you can actually choose, right? That is to say, you can choose the modality or the version of the TOEFL exam you want to take. Because as I was mentioning you, the TOEFL exam has actually 3 different modalities. And when you enroll yourself in order to take the exam, by the way, how do you enroll yourself? Well, by getting into the ETS website, right? As you can see, it's ETS TOEFL login, and here you're going to receive this. That is to say, ets.org, logging into your ETS account. And here's where you log in, of course, where you create your account, and where, of course, after getting into the website, where you register yourself for the exam, right? So as you can see here, this is the website. I'm gonna send it to the WhatsApp group, maybe just in case you want to review it, to see what you can find out, and of course, maybe to create your account once and for all. So there you have. Now, as I say, when you take the exam, or better said, when you enroll yourself for the exam, you can actually choose the modality or the version of the exam you want to take. So as I mentioned, dear students, there are 3 different modalities of the exam. And of course, the mechanism of the exam changes with regard to the modality you're going to take. The content doesn't vary, okay? So please don't be afraid of that. The content doesn't vary. So everything you're going to learn in these classes, okay, everything you're going to be receiving, apprehending on these classes is going to be working for you. Doesn't matter what type of the TOEFL exam you take or what version of the TOEFL exam you take, all right? So I just wanted to clarify that. The content doesn't vary. What changes is the mechanism, how you take it. So let me explain. So as I was mentioning, in the TOEFL exam, there are 3 different types of exam, or let's say 3 different versions, not to, let's say, confuse you. The first version of the TOEFL exam is called IBT version, and it's the most common one. And I would say, in my experience, this is the version that 90% of test takers actually decide to take, the IBT version. And this letters also has, these letters also have its meaning, and they stand for internet-based test, all right? This is a TOEFL IBT exam. So as I was mentioning, this is the most common version of the exam, and it basically consists on you getting into the website of ETS. Oh, by the way, maybe you're wondering, what is ETS? Because I'm mentioning ETS very much. ETS is the company that organizes the exam, all right? ETS is the company that has complete control upon the organization of the exam, the delivering of the exam, let's say, about the content of the exam. They are basically the supreme rulers of the TOEFL exam, right? So ETS is, as I say, the company that manages the exam. So when I refer to ETS, I basically refer to the people who are in charge of the exam, all right? So as I mentioned, when you get into your ETS account and you want to register yourself for the exam, you're going to see the IVT version as an option. And this version, if you choose it, it's going to give you the following panorama. When you take the IVT version, that is to say, as I mentioned, the internet-based test, apart from choosing a due date for the exam, because of course, right, you are aware of this, when you enroll yourself for the exam, you have to see the available dates for you to take the exam, right? So for example, let's say on your city, because everything depends in the city or the country you're living in, right? So let's say you live in Peru, in Lima. So if you're living in Peru, Lima, you're gonna see that in the website, they're going to give you, let's say, October 21st and October, I don't know, 29 in order for you to take the exam, because those are the only available times or dates for you to take it in October in Lima, Peru. So you choose one of those dates. As I say, these dates or these available times change regarding the country you are living in. If you live in Bolivia, it's a completely different story. If you live in, I don't know, in the US right now, or if you live in Central America, of course, it's a completely different story. So as I say, you have to get into the website in your country, and then you're going to be able to, of course, choose your city, your country, and then they are going to tell you when can you take the exam. That is to say, maybe in 2 weeks or in 1 month, in 2 months, you have to see, all right? Now, after you choose the due date, that of course is the first thing you choose, when you take the IVT version, there is something else you have to choose. And what is that? The test center where you're going to take the exam. Because in the IVT version, always remember this, you need to take the exam in person. That is to say, you are going to go to a place, it can be a building, it can be a university, a high school, I don't know, anything. It's a place, all right, where you have to go in person, and the exam, you're going to take it in that place. That is to say, there are going to be people from ETS, or right, people, of course, working for ETS, who are going to wait for you on that day, as I say, in this place, all right? And they're going to take you into a computation room, that is to say, into a room with a lot of computers, and there is where you're going to take the exam, okay? In a computation room, in a room with a lot of computers. And why a lot of computers? Well, because if you take the IVT version, you're going to take this exam with more test takers. There is a super, as I say, ridiculous probability that you're going to be the only test taker on that day in that particular test center. Normally, in my experience, when you take the exam in your room, in your computation room, there are, let's say, 12, 15 people who take the exam with you, because of course, this is a public examination and more people can take it. For those of you who are joining us, we are discussing right now the TOEFL exam, what does it mean, and also we're discussing the different versions of the exam. We're discussing right now the IVT version, that is the most common one, and that basically stands for internet-based tests, and explaining that after you choose a due date for you to take the exam, you also have to you have to choose a test center. That is what differentiates the IVT version, that you're going to take the exam in person, in a, as I say, university, a building, a place, a high school. It can be everywhere, but the point is that it is an authorized place by ETS, that the company that organizes the TOEFL exam. Now, let us come back to our topic. As I was mentioning, dear students, you're going to take the exam if you take the IVT version with more people. Let's say 12, I don't know, 13, maybe just 5, 6, but more people are going to be with you on that day. You're not going to be the only one on that in that computation room. So as I mentioned, it's a computation room because everything in the exam, that is to say, all the different sections in the exam, the speaking, the writing, the listening, the reading, you are going to take them through a computer. That is the reason why this is called internet-based test, because everything, you're going to take it through a computer. You're going to write on a keyboard. You're going to speak through a microphone connected to the computer. You're going to read the passages in the reading section on your screen. Everything is going to be through a computer that, of course, has access to the internet. And you don't have to worry about anything or any of these technical things or any of these technical details, the internet of the computer, the internet of the room, the I don't know, the peripherals you're going to have, for example, the keyboard, the screen, the mouse. You don't have to worry about any of those items. Why? Because when you take the IVT version, everything that has to do with technical support, technical elements, the computer, the internet, everything, and trust me when I say everything, actually also the material you're going to need for taking the exam, that is to say, paper, pencils, erasers, because by the way, something very important, and we're going to discuss this throughout the exam, is to take notes, right? Taking notes is an essential skill that you have to also polish and perfect during these classes, because during the different sections of the TOEFL exam, you are going to be taking notes, all right? So as I say, everything you need in order to take the exam, the test center is going to provide it for you. That is to say, if you go for the IVT version, you don't have to worry about anything else than your own preparation. You have to get into that place, having prepared yourself with your own knowledge of the exam, and that's it. With regard to the computer, to the internet, technical assistance, for example, if something goes wrong with your computer on that day, everything the people from ETS are going to take care of, right? As I say, you are not going to be worried about anything else than your own preparation, right? That is, let's say, one of the greatest advantages when you take the IVT version, right? So as I say, you choose your due date for the exam, you choose your test center that, as I told you, by the way, also depends on in the city you are living in. Let's say you live in coming back to our example, in Lima, Peru. So of course, in Lima, there can be a lot of test centers. But on that day, maybe just 2 or 3 of them are available. So of course, you have to choose which of them somehow suits you the most. That is to say, maybe you want to go for one that is nearby your city, nearby your neighborhood, or maybe you just feel comfortable at a particular place that is a test center. Well, go for that one. But as I say, the test centers are also available depending on where you are living in right now, okay? If you live in Bolivia, of course, the test centers are going to be different. And of course, you're going to have to choose them depending on the availability of these test centers in your city. Maybe in your city, there's just one test center. Maybe there are, I don't know, 10, 9, 8, well, you choose. And of course, there is the also very, very ridiculous probability that in your city, there is no test center, but that is ridiculous. I mean, the TOEFL exam is the most common and famous exam for, let's say, having an evaluation of your English level. So of course, there's going to be at least one test center in your city, or at least in your country, let's say in the worst case scenario. But as I say, it's ridiculous. There is going to be at least one test center in your city, because I live in Bolivia. And although Bolivia is not a super great country, we have a lot of test centers. So just in case you, of course, were thinking about it, you are going to find one test center at least, right? At least one test center. All right, so as I mentioned, that is everything you need to know about the IVT version. On the due date, you go to this test center, you don't worry about anything but taking the exam, being prepared. That's it. This is the IVT version. Now, there is a very similar version to that one. As I told you, these versions are not actually much different. The only thing that changes and varies is the mechanism you have in order to take the exam. The other version similar to this one is the PVT version. As you can see, it's right below the IVT version. It says PVT version, paper-based test. Now, this version, the PVT version, the paper-based test, is not very common in South America or Central America, I have to say. This version, the PVT version, is exactly the same than the IVT version. You also have to choose a test center. You have to enroll yourself in the ETS website. You have to, as I say, prepare yourself, etc. They are going to provide you with all the materials you need, all of that. Everything that I have mentioned for the IVT version is exactly the same for the PVT version. Now, what is the difference? That, as I told you, in the IVT version, everything on the exam, you take it through a computer, right, that has connection to internet. Nonetheless, in the PVT version, everything on the exam, you take it on paper. That is to say, the reading passages are going to be delivered to you on paper. You're going to have to, let's say, write down your essays, not through a keyboard, but with your own hands, of course, on paper with a pencil, and the rest as well, of course, is affected because there is not going to be computer for you on that day, but everything you're going to have to make it through, as I say, paper or any other device that they give you, but no computers, all right? And as I told you, this is not a popular version. This is a version that is, let's say, invented for people who live in super poor countries, like, you know, some African country that they don't even have, I don't know, access to internet, sadly, right? Maybe that would be a place where they could be taking the PVT version, but for most of the countries in South America and Central America, we have, of course, the possibility to have access to internet. So I guess this is not a version you're going to go for because, of course, we are people who are living in the 20th and the 21st century, and we are very much used to work with computers. But just in case, maybe in your city, this version is available. If you see it and you want to take the PVT version, well, instead of choosing the IVT version, you go for the PBT version, right? Of course, it is up to you. You are free to choose whatever you want, right? Now, finally, the third version of the TOEFL exam is called the home IVT version. As you can see, it's very similar to this one, IVT version, but in here, we have an extra and additional word, home IVT version, or the home edition of the TOEFL exam. Now, this is exactly the same as I told you with regard to the content of the IVT version, with regard to, let's say, the registration process is also the same. Now, what is the difference? And also, you're going to take the home IVT version through a computer, by the way. It's similar to the IVT version, not to the PBT version. You're going to take everything through a computer. Now, what is the difference? I think it's very obvious, right? I'm plain because of the word. Instead of going, all right, instead of going out in order to take the exam and to assist to a building or university or a high school in person to take the exam, you are not going to get out of your house. You're going to take the exam, the TOEFL exam, at home. That is the reason why this is called the IVT home edition, all right? So if you take this home edition, as I say, you're going to take the exam through your own computer. They are not going to give you a computer, of course, with your own peripherals, with your own keyboard, with your own mouse, with your own screen, everything. As I say, you're going to take it with your own elements, with your own supplies. Now, you're going to take it at home, as I told you. And of course, here there is a difficulty that because you are at your home, of course, they are not going to be able to give you technical support, right? So for example, if something goes wrong, right, with your internet on that day, that of course is the day for you to take the exam, then I'm so sorry, but they are going to tell you that is your problem. Because as I say, when you're taking the IVT home edition, you are saying, well, I'm going to be responsible for everything I need for the exam. The only thing that they're going to give you, of course, is the content of the exam. They're going to give you the material, but the rest is going to be a responsibility on your shoulders, okay? Not on the ETS members that are waiting for you if you take the IVT version. And secondly, of course, there's going to be a person looking at you through your webcam, just in case you were wondering that. If you take it at home, of course, there's going to be somebody watching on you because they don't want to have people who are cheating on the exam, right? So of course, you have to always be visible to the reviewer who is looking at you through the webcam. If you are for 2-3 seconds not visible for them, well, you are banned from the exam. As I say, you're very much controlled. Now, there are a lot of other difficulties with this home IVT version. As I told you, a very important activity during the entire exam is knowing how to take notes efficiently. And when you take the IVT version, they give you paper, as I told you, and pencils and pens in order for you to take your notes and to use those notes throughout the exam. Now, if you're going to take the home IVT version, of course, you are not going to have that chance because your notes, if you're going to take the home IVT version, you're going to have to write them down, not on paper, but you're going to have to get a desktop whiteboard. You know what is a whiteboard? Una pizarra blanca. One of these boards that nowadays universities use that basically have erasable markers, right? So basically you have to write down with your erasable marker on that surface and then you can erase, right? You have to get one of those for you. Why? Because on the day of the exam, if you take the home IVT version, they are not going to allow you to take notes on paper, all right? But they want you to have a desktop whiteboard, a very small whiteboard, and to take your notes like this, like having the whiteboard here and writing down your notes, being visible to the reviewer through the webcam, as I told you. So of course, that is a complication. Why? Because you're going to have to erase once and again, and once and again, and once and again, if you want to include more information, because of course, it's a very small whiteboard with limited space. So of course, you have to erase and to rewrite everything. So as I say, if you can, let's say, of course, get over all these difficulties, choose this one as well, because of course, it has the incredible advantage of not going out of your home. Maybe you are going to be super comfortable at home. You're going to be, of course, silent. You're not going to have nobody to bother you if you're going to take it at home. But of course, if you're going to take the IVT version, prepare yourself for being bothered because, as I say, more people are going to take the exam with you. In the same computation room, there can be 10, 12, 13 people. And of course, there's going to be a lot of movement. People from ETS are going to be walking throughout the room. They want to make sure that nobody's cheating. They want to assist with technical support sometimes as well. But and as I say, and also particularly for the speaking section, there is the difficulty that, of course, if you're going to take the IVT version, everybody in your room is going to speak at the same time. So maybe you can get confused. Of course, I'm gonna give you some tips and hacks that I have discovered for you to ace that particular part and not to suffer very much from the speaking section. But anyways, of course, it's going to be a difficulty, right? To be sharing this room with more people. So if you're not somebody who likes to have this type of interaction, of course, worse in such an important day as the TOEFL exam, you can take this one. But as I say, it also has its disadvantages. Basically, the conclusion for all this, dear students, is think very well, okay, reason very well before choosing the modality or the version you want to take of the TOEFL exam. As I say, you have to check out the availability. If in your city, country, the 3 versions are available, well, choose the one that suits you the most. Maybe in your city, only the IVT version is available. Well, you can do no more, of course, apart from going out to another country or city in order to take the exam. But many people do it, by the way. They are very much eager and, well, they need to take the exam so that because the exam is, let's say, in the modality they want, right, not available in their city, they go out, they travel in order to take it in a nearby city or I don't know, country. But anyways, as I say, everything depends on the availability of the exam. And how can you know the availability of the exam depending on your city and country? Well, by getting into this website that I sent to the WhatsApp group, as I told you, dear students, and of course, as I told you as well, getting into registering, as I told you, well, basically logging in, creating your account, registering yourself for the exam. All right. That is said with regard to the different versions of the TOEFL exam. Now, here is a very good point on my excursus for you to ask questions. Please, dear students, is it something maybe that I could clarify with regards to the different versions of the TOEFL exam or something that I could help you with? Please tell me. I'm going to be delighted to help you in this part. Is there any question or everything is clear so that we can continue? Yes, Yasmin, please.
Yes.
Your question.
It's more a curiosity. What is the difference between TOEFL and the IELTS exam?
All right. Well, thank you very much, Yasmin. Well, I mean, I have to confess that I'm not very much familiarized with any other of the examinations, let's say of the standardized examinations. Of course, I know of that one that you have mentioned. I know of the Cambridge exam, etc., etc. Now, what I can tell you about is the TOEFL exam. And what I can tell you about the TOEFL exam is the following, that the TOEFL exam is the most common and known exam in the entire world for certifying and, of course, let's say, evaluating your level of English. We're going to discuss right now, why should you take the TOEFL exam? And there are some reasons why people normally take the TOEFL exam. And the most common ones are being accepted in a university abroad, you know, well, receiving a scholarship, maybe in order to demonstrate how good your level of English is, getting a job for a, I don't know, international company that requires you to communicate with your colleagues in English. But all of these reasons, okay, if you have, or if you're thinking to take the exam for any of these reasons, what I can tell you is that if you're going to take the TOEFL exam, that is going to work for you. That is to say, they are going to recognize the exam as a valid proof that you are actually very much proficient in English. I'm not sure about the availability of other examinations in the world, but with regard to the TOEFL exam, there is no a single institution in the world, university or company that will not recognize this as a valid proof of your proficiency in the language. So as I say, what I can tell you is that the TOEFL exam is certainly the best option if you don't want to maybe take the risk that, for example, if you want to apply to a university in Europe, in, I don't know, in the Netherlands, for example, and that university is requiring you to show you, or excuse me, is requiring you to show that you are able to speak and to write and to read in English, you are not going to worry about, oh, but maybe they're not going to recognize the TOEFL exam as a valid and legal proof that I know how to speak English. That is not going to happen. As I say, this exam is recognized in more than 175 countries, so there is never going to be a probability. But with regard to differences with other exams, I cannot say very much because, as I say, my area of expertise is this exam. And but well, you can of course find it out in other websites. But with regard to this exam, I can tell you it's a very easy exam to take once you know how to do it. So if you're looking for a very easy manner to demonstrate how good you are in this language and to have a certain demonstration and certification that you know how to speak English, take this one, because as I say, there's not going to be company or university in the world that is going to say, oh, by the TOEFL exam, we don't know what it is. No, That is never going to happen. Okay, that is everything that I can help you. Is that fine? Maybe, or I could clarify.
Yeah, thank you. That's enough. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Yasmin. All right, my pleasure. Is there any other question, your students? Any other thing that I could clarify as maybe? Questions, commentaries as well, of course.
Everything
Questions?
is clear for me.
All right, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Sarah. There you are. Fantastic. So if there are no more questions, I think that we can move on, right? As I was mentioning, like this is a very interesting part, and actually I'm very glad that one of our classmates mentioned this topic. Why should you take the TOEFL exam, right? Why should you take it? Well, of course, maybe this is a little bit redundant, knowing that all of you are here because you want to take the exam, right? And maybe, and as I told you, I'm not sure if I told you this actually, but I have discovered, you know, in my experience teaching these lessons that every single student that comes here to learn and to prepare himself or herself in order to take the exam has a dream behind that exam. And that dream, I want to tell you, it's very important. Why? Because this is going to be your motivation, right? Because as I say, it is not an easy process, especially if you want to get a high score. We're going to be talking about scores and a matter of seconds. Don't worry about, as I say, it's a very difficult process to prepare yourself for this exam and to be, let's say, ready and to be comfortable with your own level and with your own preparation before taking it. Nonetheless, that motivation is going to be, of course, the engine basically pushing you over and to constantly remind you that you need to perform very well in this exam. So one of those motivations is going to be behind these categories. That people take the exam in order to be accepted into a university abroad. As I mentioned you before, when you want to apply to a university that is located or settled in America, especially, or in Europe, in countries like, I don't know, Great Britain, I don't know, maybe the Netherlands, Switzerland, any of those countries, right? That are, of course, English speaking countries. Of course, if you want to study there in one of their institutions, they want to make sure that you're going to be able to take advantage of the content they are teaching. They want to make sure you're able to read, to discuss in English, to write down homeworks, assignments, articles in English. So they want to make sure that you are able to do it. And what are they going to request? Well, they are going to request some sort of certification that demonstrates your proficiency in this language. So that is why you take the TOEFL exam. Also, in order to receive scholarships, well, this is very common as well. Of my students who come here to take the classes, many of them are super talented people who are incredibly, talented, incredibly knowledgeable of different topics. So they want to receive a scholarship. They have strived during their professional career, so they want to receive the opportunity to study a master's degree, a PhD in other countries. And of course, the scholarships are very much, let's say, persecuted because they cover, right, for all the fees and the expenses of living and studying in other countries. So of course, if you think about it, when people want to apply for scholarships in America or Europe, you are not going to be the only one doing it, right? You're going to be competing against the most talented students around the world. So how can you, let's say, stand out from that very huge and large group of applicants? Well, by having a very high level of English, because of course, universities, in order to give scholarships, are looking for students that are going to be able to stand out in their institutions, and to have a very good qualification in English demonstrates that you're not going to be somebody having troubles in the institution, but quite the contrary, you're going to be always standing out, as I say. So if you want to receive a scholarship, well, especially you're going to have to get a high score in the TOEFL exam. So this is one of the reasons. Third reason, to get a job. Maybe some of you want to work remotely for an international company. That has happened as well several times in these classes. My student says, I want to work for, I don't know, for Amazon. I want to work for Google because they have to study, I don't know, system engineering. So they want to study for one of those incredible companies, but living in their countries, in their home countries. Maybe they live in, I don't know, in Colombia and Paraguay. So they want to, of course, work for those companies, but remotely from their own country without leaving it. And how can they receive that position or that job? How could they get that job? Well, by presenting, again, a demonstration that they know how to speak this language and that they are super proficient at it. Because especially in professional settings, it's very important to be efficient, effective, to be, as I say, somebody who is the best at every single point, because you are, of course, a professional, right? So you have to be the best. So as I say, how can you get one of these jobs? Well, taking the TOEFL exam, showing this as a proof that you are very proficient in this language, right? And of course, there are more reasons. Maybe you are somebody who desires to demonstrate to yourself that you have a very good level of English. Maybe you have studied this language for, I don't know, 3-4 years. So you want to see, right? You want to check out what your current level is, in order to see if you can improve a little bit more, or maybe you just want to do it for personal realization. That's fantastic, right? Why not? I mean, to take the exam, to get a high qualification, to demonstrate yourself that you are somebody who understood this language, who has perfected this language. Fantastic, why not, right? I mean, as I said, there are a lot of reasons, but those motivations must be very clear to you, because as I say, those are going to be the engines for you to continue when you perceive things to be very difficult, right? So always keep this on mind, all right? Very important. So now let's get it to know each other, right? This is a very interesting part, because you're going to be able to know a little bit about me as well, and I'm going to be able to know a little bit about you. And this is important because, well, you're going to see that throughout the following weeks, we're going to become friends, right? And we're going to create a family here. And of course, we have to know each other and to, well, be familiarized with each other. So let us start with this. We're going to be knowing each other. You're going to be, well, introducing yourself, well, basically stating your name, stating your city, maybe, I don't know, commenting a little bit on why are you taking the TOEFL exam, why are you taking these classes. This is very important. Do you need a specific score in the test? By the way, before we get into this, I wanted to clarify that maybe some of you are, of course, I guess most of you are aware of this. The TOEFL exam basically qualifies your English in a spectrum of 0 until 120. That is to say, when you take the TOEFL exam, they're going to give you qualifications or grades, scores, however you want to name them, for every single section of the TOEFL exam. We're going to discuss that. Here are the sections, by the way, the normal ones: reading, listening, speaking, and writing. We're going to discuss this, don't worry. But as I say, it's like when you perform on these sections, they're going to give you qualifications of 30 at a maximum of 30 for each of them. The maximum qualification for the reading is 30. The maximum qualification for the listening is 30. The maximum for the speaking is 30. And the maximum qualification you could receive for the writing is 30. Of course, depending on your performance, right? How good you perform it, you're going to receive a higher score. Now, as I say, from 0 to 30 in the sections independently. So if you sum up everything, you're going to come up with an overall maximum qualification of 120. So as I say, the minimum qualification you can get in this exam is, of course, 0. Nobody gets 0, of course, right? I mean, people don't take the exam as a joke, because it's a very prestigious exam, and of course, it costs money. You're not going to spend money on something that you have no idea about, right? Nobody gets 0. But as I say, the maximum qualification is 120. That is the maximum you could get in this exam, 120. And depending, of course, on the level you are, you're going to receive, and on your performance as well, you're going to receive a qualification. Let's say that, and for example, maybe you're wondering, how difficult is it to get 120? The other day I was reading, for example, an article published by Prep Scholar. Have you ever heard about that website, by the way? Prep Scholar is a very famous website for people who are applying to American universities, especially. And they published an article that said that, you know how many people managed to get more than 105 in the TOEFL exam? Remember, the maximum is 120 and the minimum is 0. So do you know how many people managed to get more than 105? According to that article, just 5% of test takers managed to get more than 105. So maybe if you're thinking about applying to the best universities of the world, like Harvard, Yale, I don't know, Princeton, things of that sort, or you're planning to get on a scholarship, of course you want to be in that super selected group of people who have managed to get more than 105. As I say, just 5% of the students or test takers to take the exam managed to get more than 105. So as I say, and of course, don't get afraid or don't get annoyed or bothered if you get something that is to say something that is less than that. That is to say, a lower qualification, because everything depends on what is your motivation. As I told you, the motivation you have behind this dream of taking the exam is very important, because maybe you are trying to apply to a university in the Netherlands, and they just require you as a minimum to get 70 in a TOEFL exam. And that is very important because it's depending on why or what is going to be that purpose you're going to give to this exam that you're going to be thinking, okay, what score should I want to have? If you're applying to universities in Europe, normally they require 70, 80, things of that sort. If you're applying to, I don't know, to live in a country and to demonstrate you're going to be able to communicate yourself, 60, 50. And as I say, if you're applying to the best universities, to the best universities of the world, well, above 100, of course, right? So as I say, it depends on your own circumstance, and it depends on the institution you're going to send these results to, right? So everything you have to check it out with your own institutions, with your own, for example, with the own company you're trying to apply. If you're going for a job position, talk to the company. How much would you like me to get? I mean, what is the minimum? What is a good qualification for you? Because as I say, you have that spectrum from 0 to 120, but everything depends on the institution that is requiring you the exam, because they are the ones that give the minimums. Okay, we want students who have more than 70, or we want students who have more than 80. So you are going to know by knowing that criteria, how much should you get in the exam in order to, of course, fulfill your dream. But as I say, everything depends on you. All right, that is more or less a discussion on that topic. Now let's get to know each other. All right. I'm so sorry, I didn't want to open this one. Let's get to know each other. All right. So here we are. Here we are. Okay. So let me introduce myself first. Of course, it's always the teacher who starts, right? So here I am. So, well, my name is Carlos. Okay, Carlos Rivera, as I told you. Well, I am from Bolivia. Very important. I am currently studying laws and also system engineering as well. Well, a little bit about me, maybe about my experience on this exam. I have taken this exam twice in my life. All right. The first time I took it in 2020, and the second one was in 2021. All right. As you can see, those were my scores. The first time I took the TOEFL exam, I got 100 out of 120. And the second time I took it, I got 110 out of 120, of course. So as you can see, those are my qualifications. Now, of course, maybe you're saying, well, I mean, those are high scores. Yes, they are. But why do I show them to you? The reason why I show them to you is in order to motivate you. Why? Because when I started to prepare myself for the TOEFL exam, I remember that I took a simulation, one of the simulations that you find out on the internet, right? And I got something like 75 or 70, I think. So because of that, I motivated myself very much because, of course, there was a dream behind this desire of mine to take the exam, and I wanted to fulfill it, of course. So I motivated myself very much. I started to study a lot as well. I started in the morning, in the afternoon, when it was in the evening, I also study. I prepared myself. I improved some parts of my English that were lacking a little bit of perfection. So I tried to, I mean, as I say, I gave the best that I could give. So as I say, it is possible to get this scores, all right? So how can you do it? Well, by, of course, paying attention to the classes when we are going to discuss. I'm going to be giving you some, of course, tips and hacks that I have discovered in my own experience. So as I told you, I'm here to guide you, and I know what is it to be in your situation. So I can say, and I can, of course, collaborate you with some tips that somebody with experience can give you, right? So as I say, pay attention to the classes and practice a lot, okay? Because I'm gonna be giving you a lot of material, links, websites, YouTube channels, some readings as well, a lot of material in the WhatsApp group. And if you receive it and you practice it in your free time, you're gonna be able to get these high scores as well, all right? Just in case you wanted to know. Fantastic. So there's some information about me. Basically, I'm somebody who likes to read very much. I like to study very much. I've traveled to America as well a couple of times. I love the country. As you can see, I love English as well. So that is the, well, my little introduction, okay? Now, I want to know about you, all right? So please, is there any volunteer that would like to start with these rounds of self-introductions, or should I pick up somebody? Any volunteers, persons? Yes, Sarah, please.
Well, hi, my name is Sarah Ramallo. I'm 23 years old and I live in La Paz, Bolivia. I'm taking the TOEFL test because my university asked me to take it so I can take more subjects. And I want to achieve a score of 80.
All right. Yes. Well, thank you very much, dear Sarah. Fantastic. Fantastic. Thank you very much. Well, a pleasure to know you're from Bolivia as well. And very good. Yes, I've also had that situation as well some times ago. That some students told me, yes, this is a requirement from my university to graduate sometimes, or as in your case, to continue with some further studies, right? Maybe you're studying some career related to languages. Of course, they're going to require you this. But as I say, fantastic. I like that you have the dream very clear, and don't worry that we're going to be working in order to attain those that particular score you're looking for, right? So thank you very much, Sarah, for introducing yourself. A pleasure to know you. Who else? Well, let's continue with Jasmine. Please, Jasmine, could you introduce yourself?
Yes, I'm gonna turn on my camera just to know my face.
Fantastic.
Hello, my name is Jasmine Benitez. I'm from Honduras, and I'm taking that TOEFL exam because I want to study abroad in Germany, and I need to give proof that I'm fluent in speaking and writing in English. I also work for a company in the United States. Yes, and yeah, I've been studying English since 2020. And even though they accepted me, even if I was not speaking English at all, I want to prove that I've improved in this area, in my English skills.
All right, incredible. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, dear Jasmine. So it is Jasmine, by the way, or Jasmine, the pronunciation?
It's Jasmine or Jasmine. In Spanish, it's more Jasmine, but in English, more the majority just call me Jasmine because I think the J, it doesn't exist in English, I believe. The I don't know.
Yes, that sounds yes, certainly. That was the reason why I pronounced it Jasmine. Nonetheless, I was trying to make sure maybe you wanted me to call you Jasmine or fantastic. So if you are comfortable with Jasmine, then Jasmine will be.
Yeah, it's up to you. I don't really.
All right, fantastic. Well, thank you very much, dear Jasmine, for sharing a little bit about you as well. A pleasure to have a student from Honduras. I've never been there, but of course I would like to visit. And incredible that you have been able to enter this company in the US, working remotely, I guess. And as you said, well, if you got into without knowing English, of course, it's because you have an incredible capacity, right? But now imagine that, or how you're going to boost your career and your position in that company by, as you said, showing them that you have improved in this important area as well, right? So fantastic. Thank you very much, Jasmine, for sharing that with us. Very good. Santiago, please, could you follow up with this round of self-introductions?
Well, hi, everyone. My name is Santiago Lara. I'm 24. And recently I have obtained my law degree. I'm living in Cochabamba, Bolivia. And I want to have a high score in TOEFL because I'm applying for a scholarship in the UK government. And that's my motivation.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, dear Santiago. So I'm not a lawyer yet, but we're going to be colleagues then in a very short time. Fantastic. Thank you very much, dear Santiago, for sharing that with us. Yes, certainly. I've heard about some opportunities in the UK as well. Some people, of course, would like to study in that incredible country, especially in universities like Cambridge and Oxford, right? So, of course, certainly, especially for the British people, it's very important for them to have people who are proficient in English because they are not that much used to the fact of having people or immigrants to their country, as in the US, right? Because in the US, it's like, as there are a lot of immigrants, they are used to people who do not have, let's say, a super good level of English. But nonetheless, in Great Britain, they are more picky, let's say, they're more strict with that. So fantastic. We're going to be working towards that. And thank you very much, okay, Santiago, for sharing that. Pleasure. So let's continue with Mateo, please. Dear Mateo, could you start with your self-introduction?
Hello, can you guys hear me?
Yes, dear Mateo.
Okay, I am Mateo Lara. I am 19 years old. I'm actually studying marketing in college. I'm just taking this class because I want to learn. I'm not planning to do this test in this moment of my life.
All right.
But probably in the future, I will need these skills.
Mm-hmm. Yes, certainly. Okay, thank you very much, Mateo. No, a pleasure. Anyways, as you say, like even when you're not going to take the exam soon, because this has also happened with many of my students as well. They say, I'm going to take this exam next year, but nonetheless, I want to start preparing myself right now. Fantastic, right? I mean, as more preparation you have, the better for you, because, well, you're going to be able to perform this exam with a lot of preparation, a lot of previous knowledge, and that is fantastic. So if you are thinking about taking it in a while, well, don't worry, fantastic. It's going to be incredible for you to have this knowledge from now on and to perfect it, right, through the months or years that you are going to wait for taking the exam. Fantastic, Mateo. Thank you very much. Incredible. And finally, we have Andrea. Andrea, please, could you introduce yourself?
Hi, good evening, everyone. My name is Andrea Gonzalez. I am from Bolivia. I live in Oruro. I am 24 years old. And well, the reason why I am taking the TOEFL test is that I recently just got my engineering degree. So I want to apply to a scholarship. And well, the TOEFL test is a requirement. So yeah, that's my motivation, I guess.
Oh, incredible. Thank you. Thank you very much, dear Andrea. Yeah, great. As I say, it's always a pleasure to have students from Bolivia as well. And great, if you're an engineer already, as you say, it's very important as well to have that preparation abroad as well, especially for people who are living in Bolivia. I know that this is something very common that, of course, people who are very talented, they want to go out because they know that there are better opportunities, right? In international countries. So, well, fantastic. Thank you very much, dear Andrea, for sharing that with us. And we're going to be working towards that. All right, so that's what we're aiming for. Very good. Okay, so I think that we have listened to everybody. Thank you very much for introducing yourself, dear students. As I said, it's a pleasure, okay, to meet you. And let us discuss just the final aspects of this class. I don't want to, of course, take more time out of you. As I explained you, the TOEFL exam basically consists in 4 different sections: reading, listening, speaking, and writing. By the way, the TOEFL exam is a very long exam. Approximately, all right, and this is an approximate, right? You're going to be taking this exam for 3 hours and a half when you take it. Doesn't matter what modality you choose, 3 hours and a half approximately, all right? As you can see here, you have the more or less the time you're going to have for each section. And by the way, the order of the sections is always respected in the exam as well. Doesn't matter what modality or version you're taking. So always when you take the TOEFL exam, you're going to start with the reading section, right? Then with the listening, then you're going to have a 10 minutes break. You're going to have a time for you to go to the bathroom, to drink water, to eat something, etc. 10 minutes. Then you come back to the exam, the speaking section, and finally the writing section. That is always the order and is always respected, all right, just in case you wanted to know. Below the titles of the sections, you have the approximate duration, right? The reading section lasts approximately for 60 to 80 minutes. There is a possible variation. I'm going to explain it when we arrive to that topic in the following classes. The listening section also lasts for 60 to 90 minutes, all right, approximately. Then, as I say, the 10 minutes break, that is the time for you to go to the bathroom, drink water, eat something, etc. You come back to the exam, 20 minutes for the speaking section. As you can see, it's a very short section when compared to the other ones. 20 minutes, just 20 minutes for the speaking section. And finally, the writing section that is going to last for 50 minutes approximately, all right? As you can see, this is going to be the scenario for you when you take the exam. 1 hour approximately for the reading, for the listening, 10 minutes of break, speaking 20 minutes, and writing 1 hour approximately as well, all right? As I say, if you make your calculations, 3 hours and a half is going to be approximately the time you're going to be let's say, well, I'm going to say total rating because as you can see, it's a very overwhelming time, right? 3 hours and a half, overwhelming, certainly. So this is the time you're going to have to tolerate, and this is the time you're going to have for taking and performing on the exam. All right, that's it. Now, we're going to discuss this further in the following week, so don't worry about it. We're going to discuss very much specifically and very deeply about every single one of these sections, so don't worry, okay? Now, the calendar we're going to have for our classes. Now we're going to talk about our classes, not about the exam. So this is the agenda or the schedule we'll have, okay? So we are right now in the week number 1, and the topic for all this week is going to be speaking 2 and speaking 3. And why speaking 2 and 3? Because the speaking section is divided into, as I told you, 4 different tasks. So in this week, we're going to be talking about the second and the third task of the speaking section. That is going to be our topic for the overall week, all right? All this week, we're going to be discussing this topic, speaking 2 and speaking 3. Next week, that is to say, week number 2, we're going to be discussing the speaking 4 and getting into a new section, the writing 1, right? Again, because the writing section is divided into 2 different tasks. So that's the reason why it's called writing 1. Writing 4 and writing 1, excuse me, speaking 4 and writing 1, second week. The third week, we're going to be discussing the writing 1, writing 2. Fourth week, we're going to be discussing the reading, okay, the reading section. Everything is going to be about the reading. And the fifth week, we're going to discuss, as I told you, the speaking 1, all right? And also there's here one that is lacking, sorry. The reading, oh yes, 3, 4. And the reading and the listening, sorry. Here they are. Okay, now it's complete. So as you can see, this is going to be our schedule. As you can perceive, dear students, you're going to receive preparation for every single one of the sections in the exam. So don't worry about it. You're going to receive preparation for every single one of the tasks you're going to be performing on. You're going to be, at the end of these classes, you're going to be completely proficient for taking the exam, knowing exactly what to do at every particular point, element during the exam. So don't worry, okay? This is the, as I say, schedule or the agenda we're going to have for the following weeks, all right? Just in case you wanted to maybe take a picture of this, something like that, write it on agenda, fantastic. Here you have, all right? There you are. Now let's move on to the final part. Now, very important. A benefit you'll have, okay, for having chosen us is that at Executive English, we have here a benefit for you. Apart from our normal classes, as you know, are always going to be at 9 p.m. Bolivian time, you're going to have the possibility, dear students, to reserve 12 15-minute calls with me. That is to say, one-to-one calls, just you and me, okay? Every single one of you individually will have this option. You are going to be able to reserve 12 15-minute calls with me in order to practice just for the speaking section, because for many test takers, the speaking section is the most difficult one, and in my opinion, it's also the most difficult section of the entire exam. So in this 15-minute calls, what we're going to be doing is to practice for the speaking section just as it's going to be on the exam, right? We're going to use a simulator that we have here in the company, and we're going to be practicing and practicing and practicing for the speaking section, right? As you can see, you can reserve up to 12 15 minutes 15-minute calls. I'm so sorry. You're going to be able to reserve up to 12 15-minute calls. And as I mentioned, dear students, these are going to be one-to-one calls, all right? With nobody else, just one-to-one for having a very personalized review, feedback, etc. Just one-to-one with me. How can you reserve these speaking sessions? Well, I'm going to send right after we finish this class to the WhatsApp group a document that is going to guide you through the process of reserving this calls. Of course, there are some available times in which you can choose or you can reserve a call with me, and depending on the availability of that schedule that you will be seeing in the document that I'm going to send, and also, of course, of your own time, you can reserve whenever you want, right? Whenever you want to have this 15-minute calls with me, you are very much welcome to reserve them and to practice with me this section that is very difficult when you don't understand it, but when you learn it and when you practice it, it becomes a piece of cake, all right? So is there any question, dear students, about anything that I have mentioned until this point? Maybe about the agenda, speaking sessions, please.
Yes, I have one. In regards to this, 12 to 15-minute calls. Is it via
Yes.
phone or is it via WhatsApp or Zoom?
It's going to be a Zoom meeting. Yes, it's going to be a Zoom meeting. And when you reserve, there's going to be a Zoom meeting that is going to be, or a Zoom link meeting that is going to be, a link to a Zoom meeting that is going to be sent to your Gmail, okay? And you're going to be able to get into the meeting by yourself. All right?
Okay, thank you.
My pleasure. Is there any other question, dear students, about what we are going to be seeing in the following weeks? Any other thing that I could help you with? Tell me, please.
Yeah, for me, everything is clear. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Yasmin. Anybody, maybe question?
All is clear.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Sarah. There you are. What about the rest? No questions? Santiago, Mateo, Andrea, questions?
No, everything's okay.
Fantastic. There you are. So before you go, dear students, also, I'm always going to take your assistance, okay, at the end of the class. So please don't go until you, of course, listen to your name and you say present for the evidence. And it's very important for you to always, let's say, mark your assistance, because as, of course, you're well aware of, when you finish these courses, you're going to have the opportunity to have a certificate of having finished these classes that is, let's say, well, that is basically delivered by an American institution, as of course you are well aware of. And if you want to receive the certificate, you have to be, of course, present in the majority of these classes. Okay, so please always try to assist, to be present, right, in class, and to say present as well for the evidence, as I say. So please, I'm going to take your assistance. I have your list right here, and I'm going to be calling your names. Okay, so when you listen, please say present. All right. And also, and the last thing, at the end of every single class, I'm going to be delivering, okay, or releasing a poll. You know what is a poll, right? A poll is basically una votación that is anonymous. That is to say, I cannot know who responds what, who says what, etc., etc. And this poll is going to be asking you your opinion about the class. That is to say, if you thought it was well prepared, if you managed to understand me, if I was able to clarify your doubts, your hesitations. And please, as I say, you help me a lot by filling this poll, of course, positively. But as I say, it's anonymous, so please, it's your own consideration. And always going to be delivering this poll at the end of our classes, right? And today is going to be the first time. So please, your students, look at your screens and help me with this poll, okay? I'm going to appreciate it very much. So please look at your screen, help me with that as I call out your names and you say present. So is here present Jasmine Azucena Moreno?
Present.
Thank you very much, Jasmine. There you are. What about Reyes Andre? Okay, Southern was not able to make it today. Antesana Mateo?
I'm present.
Thank you very much. What about Sergio Santiago?
Present.
Thank you very much, Santiago. There's somebody that is lacking, right? Sara and Andrea, right? I guess that they are going to add your names tomorrow, but anyways, Sarah, I'm gonna write it here. Sarah and Andrea, right? Sarah and Andrea, okay. I'm gonna write down your names here for the coordinator to complete them later. So Sarah and Andrea were present. Thank you very much. There you are. Fantastic. Okay, dear students. So as I was mentioning, thank you very much, okay, for your responses. Thank you very much for having been present here, for your attention as well. As I told you, we are going to be having more classes from tomorrow on, and I'm going to be waiting for you at 9 p.m. Bolivian time. Okay, so have a wonderful night. See you tomorrow. Thank you very much. Okay.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye bye. See you.
See you tomorrow.
See you later. Bye bye. Thank you very much.